Hi, I'm Susie An, and this is the Morning Shift podcast for Tuesday, January 1st, 2019. New Year's resolutions can be a blessing or a curse. It's a time to say, okay, new year, new me. I'm finally going to get this done. But let's be honest. How many of us actually make the change we were hoping for at the start of the year? Well, if you do want to take this time to map out a game plan for your 2019 goals, maybe all you need is a coach. So Jody Michael joined us on the show yesterday. She's the CEO of Jody Michael Associates, and she is a life coach who specializes in executive and career coaching. She started things off by explaining why resolutions rarely work.
I think it's because people aren't aware of change technology, right? They set up a goal, but they don't set up an effective process to achieve that goal. In fact, some people don't set up a process at all. They're just relying on sheer willpower, and we know that doesn't work, right? So I think that when you look, at the statistics around New Year's resolutions, it's actually pretty discouraging. Today and tomorrow, half of Americans are going to sit down and write a resolution. Only 8% of them are going to be successful. And most of them are going to break their resolutions before the second week in February. So the question really is, how can we increase that probability? How can we become more successful? So again, I want to go back to that research and look at what are the common reasons that people fail. And the research shows that people set unrealistic goals. They set too many goals. They fail to track their progress, measure their progress. And this one is just amazing to me. There's a ton of people that simply forgot they set a goal. I mean, how is that? That's mind-boggling to me, right? And so let's say you're a listener out there and you just heard what I said, and you're all excited. You go, okay, I'm going to set up the New Year's resolutions different this year. I'm going to eliminate all those pitfalls. So that means you're only going to set up one goal. You're going to make sure it's realistic. And then you're going to set up small, digestible goals that you can measure and track on a daily basis. Is that going to increase the probability of your success? Yeah, that's what the research shows. How much will it move the needle? That I don't know.
Well, so then, when we're talking about moving the needle, how do people make that difference? I mean, you've talked about setting smaller goals, something that's more attainable. What else would make a difference for people?
Yeah, well, I think that what moves the needle is understanding that once you set up that goal, and even once you set up an effective process for achieving that goal, that most, if not all of the obstacles you're going to face, they're going to be internal obstacles, right? It's whatever your baggage is. So your baggage might be perfectionism, pessimism. It might be the need for control, the need to please, low self-esteem, whatever it is. Your baggage is what causes you to think or react in unproductive ways, and it's going to contribute to sabotaging your efforts to change. And when you have enough of these habits and moods and beliefs and perspectives that are driven by your baggage, you end up with bad habits. Usually, not very good habits. And those habits become deeply ingrained, right? It's like muscle memory. And that's actually what's driving your behavior or your lack of behavior. And for most of us, we're simply blind to it, right? So you have to go to another deeper level. You need to get down to your underlying operating system. You need to understand it. And then you need to rewire those unproductive habits, rebuild your neural pathways, right, with new thoughts, new behaviors. And that's what really facilitates transformative change, real change.
Is that a lot of work? I mean, I think about that. It's like I have to think of my baggage and then open up that bag and unpack it. I mean, it sounds like it could potentially be a lot of work for people, maybe a little overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming if you don't really have a methodology or you understand some of the underlying principles, right? If you're going to make a big change like weight loss or being more patient or something like that, some of the things that are going to, the key factors that are going to help you is, the first thing is radical accountability, right? Mm-hmm. So I run a full-day workshop for individuals, corporations called Accountability Mirror. And I got to tell you, people come into this workshop and they're already very successful. They're leaders, they're entrepreneurs. They're actually coming in thinking, I don't need this workshop. I'm already accountable. How do you think I became successful? I do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. And so within the first hour of that workshop, they're blown away by identifying the gaps that actually exist even in these very successful people, how they self-sabotage themselves and what gets in the way. And by the way, my definition of radical accountability, because most people have trouble just doing what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it, right? I mean, that's already a challenge. But I want a higher bar because this is what makes a difference. It's not just being accountable for the outcome, but it's being responsible and accountable for the thoughts you're thinking. It's being accountable for the mood state, how you're feeling. It's being accountable for the behavior that you're taking or you're not taking. And that's why it's important to understand the underpinnings, because systemically, that's actually what's driving the lack of accountability. It's not that you can't get to the gym physically. You're not performing that behavior. It's what you're thinking that throws you out of alignment. It's you saying, I don't feel like it. I'll do it tomorrow. Or it's a mood state that gets in the way of you actually, preventing you really from taking that action. So if you're sharpening the saw of accountability by going deeper into what's really driving you, that's going to take you to a new level of performance. And then just cultivating self-awareness and environmental awareness, because as you're moving down that path to success, you're going to be strewn with invisible obstacles. Your environment is going to throw you challenges. Your limiting thoughts and beliefs is going to throw challenges your way. Once you become aware, then you can respond in real time, right? Then you can have a self-correction process that's critical to building these new habits, these new neural pathways. And then you just need to repeat them ad nauseum until it becomes who you are. And then that new version of you, that 2.0 version, it becomes the new habit. It's like brushing teeth in the morning. You don't think about it, you just do it. And that's what you really want to, implant.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like we've got a caller. Diane in Libertyville has a resolution. Hi, Diane.
Hi. Yes, I do. And it's actually so interesting because this is just the very thing your guest is talking about. So my resolution for this year is when people ask, how are you? Especially at work, instead of saying, oh my gosh, it's crazy busy, or I'm so busy, or I'm so tired, I'm going to, change to give a new positive response. Like, I am great. How are you? Or things are going really nice or good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Instead of, because it feels like the response of, oh, I'm so busy is so trite, but it's also kind of really negative and complaining. So anyway, it's a small resolution, but I think it could really have a big impact on my day and maybe the day of those around me too.
Yeah. I mean, it also sounds like an attainable goal.
Yeah, and what would make it even more powerful is if you're actually feeling it, right? So if you're saying inauthentically, oh, I'm great.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So really, and so what's your process? I mean, so that behavioral change that you want to make so that you want to feel great in the morning, what are some habits or something that will set the environment up or help you feel that way?
I think it's, in the past I've stopped using the word just. Like, oh, I just wanted to tell you, because that just is also a very passive word for women. I wrote the word on my computer and circled it with a line through it, or, so I might just sort of, put a little reminder, somewhere, like maybe it will be, a little something to keep on my desk that when I look at it or when I get up to go somewhere where I'm going to bump into people, maybe I'll write it on my daily planner. Like, today is, a great day because, or something like that.
Yeah. And another powerful thing is gratitude journal. How many times have you heard that? But it's so powerful because when you get into that space and that mood state of gratitude, you feel great because you're looking at what's right. And so often we spend our day looking at what's wrong. And so just that shift, looking for what's right, it has a powerful impact on your day.
So, Jody, much of this falls under the category of the science of habits. Many books have been written about it, but when you're working with clients, what are some of the key strategies you tell them to employ when it comes to making good habits and breaking bad ones?
Yeah, well, first start by setting a good goal, right? And if you start with the question, who do I want to become? That's already more powerful than, getting something or having something. So I'm going to make that a little clearer. So if you set the goal, I want to lose 50 pounds, that's a powerful goal. It's not as powerful as setting the goal, I want to become healthier. And you are becoming healthier. And so what you're doing is you're really setting up a lifestyle. You're consistently optimizing. And when you just set the goal, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds, as soon as you check off that goal, guess what happens? You're done. A lot of people are going to rebound. A year later, you're up there, 50 pounds again, right? So that is not as powerful a goal. So make sure the goal you're setting is powerful, emotional, and it's who you want to become. You then want to set up what's called a SMART goal. And I think most listeners are familiar with that. But if you're not, it's an acronym, SMART, that stands for make sure your goal is S, specific, M, measurable, that it's achievable, it's reasonable, and there's got a time limit to it. And then as soon as you set that goal, you want to start, and this is the important piece people miss, you want to start designing around that goal. You ask yourself, what new behaviors need to become habits so that I can be successful? And you want to design a world around you, an environment that makes it easy to reinforce your good habits and to eliminate your bad habits. And then you want to break those new behaviors into small, little baby, bite-sized pieces, right? And small change over time has that compounding effect. We think that you need massive change to get massive results. It's actually not true. That small, there's a great book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, that does a beautiful job of setting up how to set up and reinforce those positive, good states and habits that you want and eliminate the bad ones. And it's changing 1% at a time. So those small bites, that's powerful. And of course, get a habit tracker. Measure those goals on a day-to-day basis so they're active, they're alive in your mind. And you also get the reward of checking it off, right? That little gold star that really supports us. And finding an accountability is something that's powerful as well. And they can help you watch out for your blind spots. When you start rationalizing and giving excuses and that kind of stuff, they're your backstop.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've got another call, Corey in Edgewater. Hey, Corey.
Hi, good morning.
And you had a question?
I have a question. It's more of, so when it goes through, these processes that you're talking about and changing behavior and habits and recognizing your baggage and everything, so let's say that all of that's checked off. How much does belief in the process actually play in the success of the process? So, if you go through if I go through the steps, but I don't actually believe that it's going to create any change, how does that come into effect? Does that play any factor?
It's huge. Beliefs are neither good or bad. They're either limiting or they're empowering. Why would you choose a belief that is not going to empower you and support you to success? If you believe you can't do something, you can't do it. I'll give you a quick story of a client that called several years ago, right around New Year's Day. And she called because she wanted to change careers. And she had the most unusual reason for wanting to do so I've ever heard. She said, well, I want to change careers because I had a record year in my company. She sells software, and she sold $10 million worth of software. And she needed to find a new job because she believed she couldn't sell more than $10 million. It was an anomaly. It was a ridiculous year for her. And I said to her, well, why would you have that belief? And she said, well, I just don't believe I could have it. And I said, okay. I convinced her to come in, and we spent a year of coaching together. We eradicated that belief. We eradicated that it was an anomaly. Do you know how much she sold the next year, that year that we worked together? She sold $100 million. Okay? She shattered that beyond. But here's where I knew that she was on her way. Here's when I knew she didn't need the codependency of a coach. When I asked her at the end of the year, I said, okay, are you going to need to change jobs now because you believe you can't sell $101 million next year? And she laughed. She said, no, of course, I'm going to crush it. I'm going to sell over $100 million the following year. And she did. That's the power of beliefs.
All right. Thanks, Corey. And we've got another caller, Laura in Antioch.
Hi. You know what? Every year, every new year, I acquire a new bad habit. And it's getting harder and harder and harder to find. I'm chocolate, I'm smoking, I'm overweight, I drive too fast on the highway. I'm going to have to quit my really, really good job, and I want to go into stand-up.
That sounds pretty funny to me.
Also, you know what? I'm loving this conversation, but honestly, we're perfect the way we are. We have to accept the way we are and change from there and love each other, be kind to each other. That's not a lofty goal. That's something, whether it's holding the door open or, helping this, that, or the other thing or getting rid of your stuff. It's a lot easier to do if you put your crap in the car, right? It's a lot easier to give it away. If it's in your house, it's going to stay there. So I guess my resolution would be to drive around with a car full of crap. What do you think?
Well, that's an interesting one. I'll give you that. You know what I would say? It's interesting, the collection you chose, to be a connoisseur of collecting new bad habits. But 1% change a year. So if you chose a very small thing to change and you keep focused on that change and you just slowly make it better and better and better. Let's just say the overarching goal is you want to eliminate junk food. Let's just say that's a goal. So the first thing you do is, hey, when I go out to dinner, I'm going to make sure I promise myself I'm not going to order dessert. And you start there. Or you start by getting rid of all of the junk food in your house, and you make it very hard to go get junk food. So you can have your junk food, but now you got to get in the car, you got to go drive to the grocery store, you've got to, through that whole process, there's more opportunity for you to stop that behavior, right? And here's what's most important. Let's say you fail. It's okay. If you pick it up the very next day, what's true about habits is you can have a bad day. It's not a problem. You don't want to have 2 bad days. That's when it starts the slippery slope down. And by the way, 1% better, just every day, every week, it starts to shape who you will become, and it gives you momentum and excitement to start to change more and more.
Well, I mean, kind of to that point, for many people, taking the time or the mental energy to work on themselves is seen as a selfish act. They say, there's too much going on, too many people relying on me. Why is that the wrong way to look at it?
Well, first of all, it's just not true. It's a cultural belief, and it could be someone's baggage that they're a caretaker, they're an enabler. That's the perspective. It could be an excuse, right, that they don't want to work on themselves. But I'm going to share a story that I think exemplifies that. I was working with an executive, and we had been working for about a year together. We had finished our work together, and his wife called me, and she got on the phone, and she said to me, I don't know what the hell you've done with my husband, but he's better than the man I married 30 years ago. Okay? Now, let me go back in time and tell you how that man walked in. He walked in, and he was skeptical. He walked in, he said, I don't have time for this. I'm a busy executive. I'm traveling all the time. His company had him do this. He said, it's too expensive. He was resistant, skeptical. I mean, he was not your ideal client. Fast forward several years after his wife called me, he was retiring, and he invited me to his corporate retirement party. And when he was giving his speech, he said to all of his colleagues, one of the most powerful engagements that occurred for me in my career was the relationship I had with Jody and this executive coaching thing. And it changed me. It changed the man I am. It changed the leader I am, the executive I am, the husband I am, the son I am, the father that I am. It changed me profoundly. And so when you're looking at that, the lives that this man touched differently, everything from his intimate wife and children and grandchildren to the leader he was, everything was different. So he became a more optimized version of himself, and in so doing, look at the gifts he gave everyone else. That's why it's not selfish, because everyone around you benefit when you make those kinds of changes. And for some people out there listening, I know some of you thinking, this is crazy, right? But actually, when you change your perspective, when you really change on how you come to things, when you lose your reactivity, when you start to see things from multiple or different perspectives, and then you start incorporating small habit change, et cetera, the transformation sometimes is profound.
Well, let's hear from Larry. We've got Larry in Wicker Park. Larry, what's your goal?
My goal is to stop being a procrastinator. I am a professional procrastinator. I procrastinate everything, from to tie my shoes to just everything. And my new goal is to will myself to stop procrastinating. But she mentioned that will may not be enough to succeed in a New Year's resolution. And I wanted to ask her why she believed that will is not enough. If you procrastinate, everything and planning may be difficult.
Well, you're relying on willpower to always be there for you. And I don't know about you, but it's not always there for me, So what's more effective is procrastination is actually a conversation. It is not an event. The event occurs after you're saying something to yourself. And by the way, you're saying something repeatedly over and over again. So give me one example of you procrastinating. What's something you do every day that you procrastinate about?
I'm going to be really honest. Brushing my teeth. I don't necessarily wake up to brush my teeth. I do it on the way to work or sometimes at work because I continuously procrastinate just about everything. And I'm being real serious here. It's everything. Procrastinator here.
Yeah. And so what do you say to yourself when you get up in the morning? Do you say, I want to brush my teeth right now? And you don't, right? You say...
No.
Right. What do you say?
I don't have enough time. It's always you're right. I just started thinking about it. I do say to myself, I don't have enough time.
There you go.
I don't have enough time to do this. I don't have enough time to do that.
There you go. Bingo. Okay. So that is your mantra. That's your pet. You carry around with you all the time. I don't have enough time. But you find time in the car. You do have enough time. You actually create more time if you do what I call precrastinating. And precrastinating is you do it and you get it out of the way as soon as possible. Just get it done. And it actually frees up more time. So eliminating that thought, and by the way, it's not going to just go away. You're going to say it 50 times a day. But being aware that you're saying it and then choosing to be in control, choosing a different thought that follows that. It says, no, I'm going to do that right now. And practicing that repeatedly over and over and over again creates a new habit. And the reason you have this habit is you've been doing it for years. So you multiply that out tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times you've said this to yourself. If you start the change process of first being aware that you're saying it, second, choosing powerfully to be in control and have a new thought and then take the action immediately, you're going to start to rewire your brain and you're going to actually start to do it.
And Jody, we got several calls about bullet journals that track your health. How effective do you think those are?
Anything that increases your mindfulness is effective, period. Because it keeps you conscious, it keeps you motivated, you're checking things off, they're great.
And so as we wrap this up, what are some final thoughts you have for listeners looking to make some kind of change for 2019?
I have a favorite quote, and it is, life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And I will tell you, there are very, very few people that create themselves. They simply are. And they've actually created themselves through their environment, their childhood, what's happened to them, but unconsciously. And the final thing I would say to people is, know that you can design who you want to become slowly. And there's a momentum to that feels great. And the trajectory of your life, 10 years down, compounds, is going to be remarkably different than if you were to just stay where you are today.
That's it for today's Morning Shift podcast. Remember, you can go back and listen to any segment from the show by going to wbez.org/morningshift. I'm Susie An. Have a happy and safe new year.